We are back in Las Vegas once again this week. It is the CJ Cup at Shadow Creek, a one-year hiatus as they bring it over to Vegas for this year. And this week going to Shadow Creek where we saw the match between Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, setting up a pretty fun event with, hey, no cut this weekend, so no Friday sweats for us. So let's dive on in and break it on down. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here, as always, by Brandon Gdula. He is the managing editor for numberFire. Brandon, it's the CJ Cup weekend. Usually I am super jacked for the CJ Cup because we get to wake up and see scores after in the morning. Unfortunately, we have to wait later now because it's in Vegas. So it's on like either Mountain or West Coast time. So I'm a bit sad that things are in America this year. How are you doing?
I mean, I'm over the fact that Matthew Wolfe didn't convert. I'm past it.
Are you?
I don't know why you brought it up, but yeah, it was I mean, with his Saturday, he probably didn't deserve to be there. But once it was a playoff with Martin Laird and Austin Cook, I was like, Matthew Wolfe's got this for an outright bet, but didn't happen. So I don't know why you brought it up. Like I said, so just
maybe you gotta start throwing in some each ways. I don't know, just throwing it out there.
They're not fun enough.
Are they for quitters, Brandon?
Yeah.
I mean, they got more money than you this week with your Matthew Wolfe outright. So
yeah, you know what a second place gets you whenever you bet an outright? Nothing. So you might as well finish last.
I mean, it gets you an accosting from me on the podcast. Does that count?
Yeah, you bring it up first thing.
Yeah, I didn't bring it up. Anyway, we were on Slack on Sunday. We had plenty of things to tilt for various reasons because of the NFL, because of other things outside our control that we were getting yelled at about on Twitter, and Brandon just kept on tilting about Matthew Wolfe, and I feel like the tilting is what caused him to not win the playoff. I'm just going to put that out there.
I mean,
you need more positive energy into the world and just light beam that positive energy into Matthew Wolfe.
Well, I need to make that a GIF. So,
what a GIF!
What you just did.
This is why you watch on YouTube. You can see all the weird.
Oh yeah. Not everybody's watching. I forgot. I'm still adjusting.
The podcast side, they definitely can feel. Like again, I was putting out positive vibes through my fingers. They could feel the positive vibes in their soul. So that shiver you felt, listeners, on the podcast side of things, that was the good vibes I was sending out. You're welcome. Congratulations on receiving them, and hopefully. They work for your outrights this upcoming weekend at the CJ Cup. As mentioned, they are at Shadow Creek for this weekend. It is 7,527 yards. It is a par 72. There are 78 golfers in the field this week, and there is no cut. Hallelujah. And as mentioned, this is usually held in Asia, but it's in the U.S. this year due to COVID restrictions and due to travel. That means we have no course history to go off of because they're not in Nine Bridges outside of the match. So a bit of a difficult balance for this weekend, Brandon. But when you look into this course, what are you able to find in terms of deciphering which stats we should be emphasizing?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one because there's really nothing to go off of outside of I'm not going to be digging into tape of the match or anything like that. But
why not? You're not going to grind that film, brah?
No. I mean, Phil's hitting bombs. He's been hitting bombs for years now. So I don't know if anybody, with Bryson not in the field, I don't know if anyone could even match Phil's distance. But I kind of did like the course flyover and try to just figure out what might happen. And
did you literally fly over it?
No, there are lots of drone videos of golf courses.
I just assumed it was you.
No, I don't have a drone and I cannot fly, so I had to rely on the internet.
Glad that you clarified you can't fly.
But there are 5 par 4s that are at least 460 yards. The median par 4 on the PGA Tour is around 437 for context, so good number of long par 4s. You're going to have to lay up on the second. There's a 324-yard par 4. It's bunker guarded, so I mean, yardage alone doesn't tell you everything about a golf course, but when you look in, I mean, it's still going to be a lot of long par fours. 3 of the 4 par threes are 200 plus yards, which is about median, but one is 257. There's a 622 yard par 5. So distance should lead to an advantage, I think. And if these don't end up being the actual yardages, I mean, they should be close. So don't yell at me on Twitter if they're a little bit wrong. I'm just going off of the information I had at the time. But for important stats, strokes gained approach is always going to be on the list because it is just the most predictive combined with the most impactful tee to green stat that there is. So while looking for distance and approach, that means I'm going to look for ball strikers this week. And I'm going to play it pretty straightforward because I don't know a whole lot. I'm going to go with strokes gained approach, strokes gained off the tee, as well as distance gained, even though I know there's overlap there. Putting, greens or bent grass this week, and birdie or better rate. So basically ball striking and scoring.
Yeah, I think that for me, it was between distance and off the tee, and I went off the tee just because you mentioned the bunkers. I believe there are also some trees that could potentially be in play. So I wanted to play things a bit more straight and go with off the tee as opposed to distance, but it is a bit of a guessing game. So I think distance is, if you're including like a fifth stat, I happen to have 4 on my sheet because I don't want to create an extra row on Excel, then distance would be definitely the next one to go to. But both birdies are better gained and off the tee kind of envelop some distance. So I feel pretty okay omitting that. But I do think, like you said, it matters given the length of those holes. So should be a pretty interesting event for this weekend. As mentioned, no cut. We will certainly take that. And we'll take a look at some golfers golfing well going into this event in just 1 second. But first, the 2020 NFL season is in full swing, and there is no easier way to get in on the action than FanDuel's Gridiron Pick'em contest. All you have to do is pick the winner of each week's matchups correctly. You'll take home a share of the $5,000 weekly jackpot. And the best part, it's completely free to play. We are already on to week 4 of the NFL season, so what are you waiting for to enter for free? Visit playfree.fanduel.com/gridiron. That's playfree.fanduel.com/gridiron. There's also a banner in the FanDuel lobby, so go there right now. Eligibility restrictions apply. Let's dig into what?
Did you say we're on to week 4?
I'm trying to read through this. We are already on to week 4.
The one time I listened to you.
The one time I pay attention, man.
I didn't mean to draw attention to it, but it's funny.
I mean, people listening are probably like, "What's this dude's problem?" Honestly, can we just forget that week 5 happened? Is that okay?
I think that's fair.
I don't want to go back to week 4 necessarily.
We don't know if I don't know what's going on with week 6 yet.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. It's weird. Everything's weird. I don't know. It's week 4 apparently, though. So I'm just gonna go with it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna title the podcast for Thursday is week 4 podcast. Again, That's our NFL week 6 preview podcast is Thursday on the numberFire daily fantasy podcast feed. Also recording on YouTube at 10 a.m. Eastern. So make sure you subscribe in both those places. And hopefully it's not actually week 4 because the NFL season it's a fun time. Let's move into current form. I mean, current as of now, not current as of week 4 in the NFL, and talk about golfers who have been doing well or at least interesting things recently. And with Dustin Johnson, he's the co-favorite with Jon Rahm. And before a bit of a layoff, the dude is just like going nuclear on the entire field. So what do you see with DJ, and how do we handle him here this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I know that we've been a little slow to start the podcast, but it's a smaller field. It's a no cut, and I think one of your 5 slots on FanDuel is pretty much guaranteed for Dustin Johnson. So it makes
6?
it a little
6 slots. See who's making mistakes now.
I meant one.
Who was listening?
Left, one of 5 left.
No, sure.
Cool.
Man,
I was trying to give you that, but
I listened to you again. Come on.
So you're gonna play Dustin Johnson, and then you only have 5 to figure out from there. That's what I meant. But I mean, it's been a while since we've seen him. Not since the U.S. Open when he finished 6th in mid-September, but that was after such a hot stretch. Win, missed cut, 12th, second, win, second, win. So I mean, that's just pretty phenomenal. Over the past 24 rounds, no golfer has averaged more strokes per round tee to green than Johnson, according to Fantasy National. It's not particularly close either. DJ's at 2.4 tee to green. Matthew Wolfe is second at 1.7. And we don't have course history here, but DJ has played Shadow Creek apparently a bunch. He said that he was excited to hear that they were playing at Shadow Creek because he played, quote, some good golf, end quote, in the past. So, I mean, I think that's probably pretty telling. He's a member of Sherwood Country Club, where they'll play next week. So I think that he's probably going to be at his leisure for this week. And I mean, statistically, like, I don't know what you can really do to nitpick here. Over the past 50 rounds, he's 7th off the tee, 4th in approach, 1st in birdie or better rate gained, 4th in distance gained. I think you lock him into one of your 6 spots.
Oh, better.
And then go from there.
I'm pretty sure Dustin Johnson owns the course record here. Am I making that up?
I saw that, but I don't know if that referenced.
Okay, yeah. So it was on the first look on the PGA Tour website. It says that he shot a 66, which seems high, but I don't know. So I also don't know when that occurred. So I don't know. Whatever. Either way, he's played here before. That's a plus, given that most guys have not. DJ, I agree. Statistically, the best golfer in the field. Head-to-head, I think you just lock him in, like you said, if not the other 5 slots. So we're on the same page there. What about for tournaments? Are you willing to go overweight on Dustin Johnson? Because based on your research, highest salary guy, co-favorite, he's going to be popular. Are you willing to go overweight?
I think probably not, because the top 5 guys on FanDuel in terms of salary are just all great plays to me. Mm-hmm. I think obviously Dustin Johnson is the best process play, but with this being a no-cut event, I think a lot can kind of happen over 4 rounds. Nobody's really out of it. So frankly, I would be underweight on DJ because I think Jon Rahm is such an easy pivot, and Justin Thomas has, the no-cut swag. Same with Xander Schauffele. So I think I'd probably be underweight on DJ, and he will probably be pushing 50%.
Does the Rory baby narrative still apply, or is that expired?
I think if he wins, it applies. If he doesn't, it doesn't matter. I think that's kind of how that works.
Okay, just wanted to check. So you said the top 5 golfers are all kind of elite. That means that you are snubbing Matthew Wolfe, who is number 6 in salary. Let's talk about Matthew Wolfe here, because we talked about him a bunch in this current form section, but usually it's either in the past it was as a value play, recently it's been as a stud in a watered down field, and he's neither this week. He's 11-2 against the world's best. So we have to decide if Wolfe is worth that. He finished runner-up this past weekend. There, brought it up for you, Brandon, just in case you forgot. It was his 2nd runner-up in a row and his 3rd since the end of the COVID layoff. It was his 4th top 5 in that span. What's interesting is the tournaments in which he got the top 5s. They came at the Rocket Mortgage and the Shriners. Those are not as great of events, but the other 2 were the U.S. Open and the PGA Freaking Championship, and those were tougher fields. Wolfe gained at least 7 on approach in both those. He was just net 0.6 in putting, so it wasn't even fueled by putting. He was a neutral putter, and he still finished top 5 in majors. So Wolfe has shown that he can do this in tough fields in legitimate ways. He's also just 21 years old, which you talk about age and the fact that if we see strides in irons, it can be more believable at that time. Wolfe has that, so that's good. The problem is it's hard to click on Wolfe when he's right between Xander Schauffele at 11.5 and Patrick Cantlay at 11.1. It seems like Wolfe is worthy of this salary, Brandon, but I don't know if I could view him as being a priority given the alternatives around him. Am I underselling Wolfe? Like, I think he's very worthy of this salary. And I don't think he's oversalaried by any means, but I don't think I'll get there just because there's so many good options. What about you?
Yeah, I think he's a great play in the no-cut event because he should be able to make a ton of birdies, but the issue is just the salary. Yeah. And we know that. He is $300 in salary lower than Xander Schauffele, who I prefer to Matthew Wolfe. I mean, it's not that close. You said Patrick Cantlay. I would prefer Wolfe to Cantlay, honestly, at this point, I think. Cantlay hasn't been – I mean, he was lingering, last week, but he's always in contention there. But it just drops off so much that it's, like, pretty difficult to figure where to go if you're not in the top 5. It's Wolfe. I mean, obviously he stands out because of the current form you mentioned. Cantlay, Brooks is returning. Tyrol Hatton's coming off of a win overseas. I'll talk about him in a second, but I think like the 10,000 range is kind of not that appealing relative to the top 5, which is very easy to say, but like salary considered, it's kind of hard to prioritize these guys. So I think I'm with you where you said you like Wolfe, but he's probably not a priority.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think he's appropriate where his salary is, but I want someone to be more of a value than appropriate. So I think that's the way I'm doing things for this week. Go ahead.
No, like if he were mid 10s, we'd be like, yeah, just like
go with the balance. Yeah.
If he were like 10-4, it's like, yeah, play Matthew Wolfe no matter what.
Sure.
But like,
he's not. So let's talk about the guy you alluded to previously. You mentioned Tyrol Hadden. Hatton is 10-9. He had been white hot over the summer, or I guess before the COVID layoff or something like that. But now coming back here off of a win, what do you see with Hatton?
Yeah, so he won the BMW PGA, which is a pretty good field for the European Tour. Was rocking that Adidas hoodie, garnered a lot of buzz, positive and negative.
Okay, I saw the discussion about hoodies golfing on Twitter, and I was very confused about it. But now,
I told my wife I want one of them. They look great, and as someone who is not necessarily putting the dress code at the top of the list, I would like to rock a hoodie on a golf course. But
yeah.
He was top 25 in all 3 FedEx Cup playoff events. He was 7th at the Tour Championship. Missed the cut at the U.S. Open, but again, won last week over a pretty strong field. He virtually always is a good ball striker if you look through like the week by week, but over the very recent sample, it's not quite been there. He's gained strokes from ball striking, which is off the tee and approach combined. So he's gained just 42% of the past 24 rounds on the PGA Tour, according to Fantasy National. But, I mean, he just won. We know the long-term form is there. Hatton was basically unfadable in the spring. The issue is the salary at 10-9. Yeah. I don't love this range. I would prefer Matthew Wolfe. So, like, I don't really know what this range is going to end up being for me overall. So what are your thoughts on Hatton and this range in general?
So I agree with you that I'd rather go to Wolfe than Hatton. I also like Colin Morikawa more than Hatton. Morikawa is coming off back-to-back missed cuts, but his numbers in those missed cuts are not that bad, and like the longer form on him is good. So I think I would rather go elsewhere if I'm in this tier. I think I like this tier a little bit more than you do, potentially, but I think the optimal way to approach things, even though I do like this tier more than you, may be to get into the top 5 and just kind of scramble from there. And if that's my default, that means that I'm not going to have as much exposure to the guys in this tier. And if Hatton is below Wolfe, below Cantlay, I'd probably rather take a shot on Brooks too, coming off the injury, than Hatton. So I think that that's going to just push him out of play, even though, again, it's kind of like Wolfe, where like I think he's appropriately salaried. I just don't feel the need to get there necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to mess around with like building around Wolfe and Hatton to save some salary, but I don't really think on FanDuel with how the salaries lay out, that's the right call. I think you probably just play DJ, maybe play another one of the studs, and by maybe I mean pretty frequently do that. Yeah. So that's my feel on this range in general. You can't really play DJ and Rom and get someone like Hatton.
So you were talking about how the 10,000 range is not your favorite. I would say that about the 9,000 range.
Yeah.
I am not a fan. So we're going to look for guys in this range throughout the podcast who we can tolerate. And someone who is interesting is Louis Westhazen. The stats for Westhazen are pretty meh, but he's been racking up good finishes recently, even in some pretty good fields. So he's at least worth discussing here. Westhazen has made 9 straight cuts dating back to June 21st. Obviously, we don't care about cuts here, but it means that the floor has been good. His most impressive finishes have been recent, with 6 straight finishes of 33rd or better, including 2 top 10s. The stats at that time have been fine. He's gained 1.1 off the tee on average per event and 1.8 on approach. The reason I'm hesitant to buy in is that he hasn't had pop events in those categories, and he's gained an average of 2.1 strokes putting, whereas he's just middling on bent grass over a larger sample, so I don't necessarily want to bank on that putting continuing. So among the people in this range, if you're looking at finishes, West Hazen probably is the one who grades out the best, but I think there are enough holes in those finishes where I'm not drawn to him despite that. Where do you sit on West Hazen at $9,700?
I mean, if you look at the numbers, like the irons are generally good. I just don't play him very frequently because he always seems to get like I don't know what it is. It's like a name value bump. He always seems to have shorter betting odds than I would put him at based on my win sims. The salary is always a bit higher. I don't know what it is for sure, but I really don't play Louis Oosthuizen or West Hazen. I think he's actually said both are fine. Because
whatever. If he's happy with whatever, that's the whole point, is to make them happy because it's their names.
Yes.
But, yeah.
But I like this range is not appealing to me. I do prefer, frankly, 4 names right above him.
Yes.
A few names below him. Those names are Victor Hovland, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Sung J M, and Scottie Sheffler.
Yes.
So I really don't see. Oh, and I love Harris English. He's flushing it. So
tell me the difference between Louis Oosthuizen and Billy Horschel. What's the difference?
They're the same in the sense that I'm not playing either of them this week.
Wow. Okay, hater.
I mean, I like Billy Horschel. He wears his hat backwards. He'll tell people.
It's a rebel. But like from a profile perspective, what's the difference? Is there one? Billy Horschel's a better putter.
I mean, like again, I'd have to dig into like the adjusted long-term numbers, but again, like Oosthuizen just doesn't do it for me ever.
Yeah. Like I think that the reason I'm not drawn to West Hazen is that like I can get someone who is very similar for $1,000 less in salary, so I'm going to do that. And I think that's the way that I'll play things. I agree with you where I think for some reason the name just gets bumped up too much, and I like the other guys in that range more. So despite being a rough tier, not quite going to make the cut here for West Hazen. Let's move down to the value range. Talk about Siwoo Kim. We've been talking about Siwoo Kim for a bit now, but like he keeps on producing. He's also $8,300, and usually Siwoo Kim's kind of like an upper 9,000 guy. It makes sense that he'd be lower salaried in this field, but like that's really low for a guy who can do some like multiple things pretty well. So what do you see with Siwoo Kim here?
Yeah, I mean, playing good golf. Started 4 off the lead on Sunday at the Shriners this past weekend. He finished tied for 8th. But for other recent finishes, we've been talking about him for a bit. He's made 11 of his past 12 cuts. Missed only at the U.S. Open. He's got 5 top 20s in that stretch. And the recent form makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't match up, but statistically it's there because he's 5th in strokes gained tee to green over the past 24 rounds, according to Fantasy National. So like really good tee to green numbers. Over the past 50 rounds, he is 20th in this field in strokes gained approach, 13th in birdie or better rate gained, 19th on bent grass with a putter. So I like that. There's always legitimate upside with Kim. He's gained at least 5.9 strokes tee to green in 4 of the past 7 events. And I think 7.9 in like 5 of the past 12 or so. Like we know he has spike weeks. We know there's volatility, but that's a little easier to stomach over a no-cut event. That does not mean you roster just any golfer. That's not how this works. But Siwoo Kim over 4 rounds, I think, can score a lot of FanDuel points. So I like him at 83. I think I'm pretty firm in that stance, and nothing you can say is going to change my mind.
I won't try to.
Don't even try.
I think he's a very good. I think there are 2 guys below 9,000 I feel really good about. The problem is you took both of them for the player picks in Joaquin Niemann and Siwoo Kim. I think they're the best plays below 9,000 by a pretty decent margin. Like you were talking about the volatility, but like it's weird when a volatile golfer becomes steady over a decently large sample. And that's kind of what Siwoo Kim's been doing. But I think the reason is that he's become more well-rounded because previously some of the ball striking numbers would be underwhelming, but if you look at the past 50 rounds, just straight up past 50 rounds, 28th in approach, 13th in birdies or better gained. I know you literally said those exact two stats, so don't at me, bro. But he can be long too. I said that. I knew you said it. I said that. I acknowledge the fact that you are here. Come on.
I know, it's funny because usually you don't.
Yeah, no, I figured it out. Whatever. I paid attention because I was interested in Siwoo Kim. You had my attention. There you go. Congratulations. But I think that he is well-rounded, which means that even if one aspect of his game is off, he can make up for it elsewhere. And I find that really attractive, especially, like you said, over a 4-round sample. So I think that I don't usually think of Siwoo Kim as being a cash game play, but I think he is here because using a golfer at 83 makes it a lot easier for me to avoid that low 9,000 range. Basically, everyone below, is it Hovland at 98? Or sorry, Sheffler at 98. If I can avoid everyone below $9,800, I'd like to do so. Siwoo Kim allows me to do so. So I think that Kim is someone I want to have quite a bit of this week.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like he'll be very popular because of what he's been doing, and the names around him are not necessarily that appealing. Jason Kokrak, Russell Henley. His current form is very, very good as well, just like Tita Green. But Jordan Spieth, Mackenzie Hughes, Cameron Smith, it's Siwoo Kim pretty comfortably for me. So we'll have to keep an eye on the popularity there.
Siwoo Kim, no matter what. What could go wrong? Let's talk about our final current form guy in Paul Casey, because he doesn't have good form like Siwoo Kim does. He has mixed form, I think is the way I'd phrase it, which is why I wanted to discuss him here, because he's in that really gross low 9,000 range. Casey's off the tee play has been solid. There have been no questions there. Been very good. It's the approach play that's been up and down, which is kind of surprising for Paul Casey. He's averaging 0.4 strokes gained in approach the past 5 events per event. It's according to Fantasy National. That's down from 1.6 over his past 10 events and 2.1 over his past 20. So this is a very clear downtick for Casey in the past 5 and 10 events. And what's weird is that the putting's actually been solid. He has been either neutral or positive in 6 straight events there. And that could hint for negative regression in terms of putting. But Casey actually is a good bent grass putter, and we could also see some positive regression in his approach play. We know over the longer sample that Paul Casey is a good approach player. Maybe that those recent numbers start to get better here. So I think that among the golfers in the low 9,000 range, I have not used Paul Casey for what for me is a very long time, because I tend to use him quite a bit, but I've not used him in a while. I could see myself getting back on him this week if I wind up in the $9,200 range. Let's say I already have Joaquin Niemann in my lineup, and I can't just bump down to 88. I might just take Casey at 92. He's not a priority for me, but I believe he'll wind up in my player pool for this week. What's your read on Paul Casey here?
Pretty much the same. He's definitely not a priority play. He's not a core play, but he's gained strokes from ball striking in 76% of the past 50 rounds. You mentioned the best putting surface is bent grass, so I think that's the real appeal for Casey. And again, you also alluded to the fact that he should be due for some positive regression. Basically, what we're seeing with Casey is underwhelming approach play, and that means he's either done with his career or he's going to bounce back at some point. I don't think he's quite done. So for 4 rounds, I think Casey's someone who profiles as someone who can make some birdies. And again, it's not a great range. So yeah. I don't know who you really look at and say you can't play Paul.
Hell
Casey
yeah! Who are you excited to use here?
Yeah,
we need Paul Casey to perk up so I can justify losing money on him at Augusta. So get your act together, Paul, and hopefully it starts this weekend when you're finally back in my lineup. Let's move to the bookmaker odds here for the CJ Cup. Dustin Johnson and John Rahm, the co-favorites at FanDuel Sportsbook. They are both 10-1. Then it's Justin Thomas at 12-1. Rory McIlroy and Xander Schauffele are 14-1. Then there is a dip down to Matthew Wolfe, who is 20-1. Colin Morikawa and Patrick Cantlay are both 25-1. Then Tyrol Hatton rounds with the top group at 27-1. So, Brandon, we talked about Dustin Johnson before. We are locking him in for cash games. But for tournaments, who is number 1 for you in that upper tier of 5?
For tournaments, I think there's a very good case to be made not to go with DJ, because if he doesn't win, I still don't anticipate that he will be terrible. you really need a win in a small field like this. I mean, you need to win no matter what when you're playing FanDuel. So I would probably go with John Rahm, who actually rates out a little bit more likely to win this tournament for me. Using long-term form data, not really over accounting for the fact that we know Dustin Johnson's played here. So I would go with Rahm number one over DJ for tournaments. But again, DJ is the best process play in the field by a good margin.
Yeah, it's interesting for me because I kind of want to just go Dustin Johnson number one for tournaments just because I can poke holes in literally everyone else. But, like, that's kind of not the point. Like, for a tournament, you kind of are assuming that those holes don't play out. I actually don't mind Rory. We haven't talked a lot about Rory recently because, like, his approach play has been weirdly just kind of meh recently, but if you look at the U.S. Open, gained 5.8 off the tee there. He didn't gain any on approach, but like when you're gaining that much off the tee, you don't really need to gain as much on approach. He was pretty solid at the Tour Championship coming off of the baby birth. He was 12th at the BMW. So I kind of don't mind Rory just because I feel like he's not going to be on a ton of radars. And I would bet that, like, I mean, it's like he has bad form or anything. So I kind of think I go Rory second behind DJ. I don't know if that's dumb, though.
I don't think it's dumb to play any two of the top five who are DJ, Rahm, Rory, Justin Thomas, and Xander. I think you can play any of those five. I think they're all justifiable. And that's what makes weeks like this so hard because, yes.
You can't say, no, you can't use John Rahm.
Right. And so it's like we're going to go through most of this podcast and like not mention Justin Thomas. Does that mean he's a bad play? No. It's just that process-wise, Dustin Johnson's better to me. John Rahm's better. So like it's a little bit difficult. But I think you play two of the five in the majority of your lineups. I think that's the right way to approach this. So I'm in with you. Like Rory's a great play, and he's been posting some videos of getting that ball speed up. So he might have some surprises for us.
Ooh, ripping Rory. Let's go. I like it. Do you think the default construction this week is two of the studs and then go from there?
I think so, because even though like I've been advocating for more balanced lineups for like a year now. But the 10 and the 9,000 ranges aren't just even close to the tier of the top five, which we don't usually get necessarily this level of separation for me. I think the one case you can make is like a lot of these guys are coming off of layoffs, so nothing's guaranteed. But I think I'm still going with the two studs. And, if I'm building one lineup, it's absolutely I'm picking two of the studs.
I think the other thing to consider here is that I don't view there as being much of a gap between the 9,000 and the 8,000 range. And when that's the case, I'm very willing to go pretty top heavy. So I think to me, I'd agree. We're trying to jam in two of those top five. What about odds movement? What are the big movements we have seen since things opened yesterday?
I mean, there's been a lot, but some of the most notable guys whose odds have lengthened are Rory from 11 to 14 to 1 on FanDuel Sportsbook, Patrick Cantlay 20 to 25, Tyrol Hatton 20 to 32, Colin Morikawa 22 to 25, Brooks Koepka and Tony Finau 27 to 30. A few guys have had their odds shortened, including Scottie Sheffler 41 to 37, Joaquin Niemann 65 to, I think I put 60, but he might actually be 50. Bubba Watson 100 to 70, and then Cameron Smith, Jason Kokrak, Mackenzie Hughes, and Siwoo Kim all 100 to 80.
I feel like the Rory lengthening makes me feel better about the assumption that he might go a bit overlooked, but like it's also Rory, so it's hard to like say he's going to go overlooked. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, what's going to happen is that all five of the top five will be popular. It's just DJ is going to be like 45, 50, I would assume. And then probably Rahm like 35 to 40, and then everyone else is coming in at like 20 to 25. Yeah. So
I think that's probably the way to view it.
That to me is still a lot of leverage, especially for how close. Sure. Just realistically, I simulate out golf events, and like the difference in win expectation is not 20% for DJ over like Justin Thomas. So
right,
from a game theory standpoint, I think you just try to figure out who's going to be the least popular and play those. I think that makes a lot of sense and is very justifiable.
And especially because we can make it an easy case for any of those top 5, like very, very easy.
Yeah.
Which lower salary golfers have odds that catch your attention?
Sergio Garcia's 45-1. He's 9,500. Jason Day's 45-1 at 9,300. Probably not in on either of them. Neiman is 50 at 88-1. So he'll probably be pretty chalky. Abraham Answer and Ricky Fowler 55-1. Paul Casey, Justin Rose, Gary Woodland, Shane Lowry are 60-1. All straddling right around 9,000 on FanDuel. And then Billy Horschel, your boy, is 65-1.
So we didn't talk about Ricky this week. We talked about Ricky going into last week and he missed the cut.
And he sure missed the cut.
He lost was it like 7.5 on approach or something?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because I was considering talking about him for current form today, and then I looked into his numbers and I was like, oh no. Oh no, Ricky pooed the bed in a pretty big way. Are you overlooking that and going back to him this week in a bad tier, or are we just done for now?
I think it's viable. The issue is that I was buying back into Ricky because the approach and the tee to green was like getting better, but the long term with Ricky right now is that he's not specifically great with the irons. And so you're kind of balancing, you're saying he's going to bounce back into his hot stretch, which it wasn't even that hot to begin with. It was more like, I mean, he still gains a lot of strokes around the green, which is like not bankable. So I don't think he's someone you just like can't play, but the process didn't work out last week. And so I'm probably not really in on Ricky.
Casey over Ricky, right?
I think so, because even though they're both kind of struggling, we know what Casey does well.
Yep.
And that's the profile I'd rather chase.
I agree. Weather for this weekend, it might actually be a decent week to factor in wind splits because the winds are supposed to be between 10 and 15 miles per hour the entire day on Thursday. Then on Friday, they'll start off around 15 miles per hour. They'll eventually die down a bit and fall to around 7 miles per hour by the end of the day. So it appears the first tee times will be at 10:45 local time on Friday. So the golfers in that group teeing off early Friday may have to deal with bigger winds than those teeing off later on Friday. So there could be some credence to a waves-style approach, targeting golfers teeing off early on Thursday, late on Friday. Winds are more calm over the weekend, so wind splits may not be entirely necessary, but I also don't think they would hurt matters by any means. So consider it for this week. I don't think it's a necessity, but consider wind splits and consider potentially giving a bump up to golfers who are teeing off early Thursday, late Friday. With that said, let's dive into our win picks for the CJ Cup. Brandon, starting off with you, which studs are you targeting on FanDuel for Thursday through Sunday?
It is going to be John Rahm at 11.9. I think, again, any of the top 5 are very much in play. So it's really easy to pivot away from whoever's chalky here. I know it's going to be Dustin Johnson. Just figuring out who else is going to be chalky. It'll probably be Rahm second. But, with the salaries being so tight, I think it's a week where you play 2 studs. And if I can, and I know that I can, I'm going to play Dustin Johnson and John Rahm. Rahm does everything that I'm looking for. He's long off the tee. The approach play is never quite that good relative to the other studs, but he's such a good putter that kind of makes up for it a bit. And he's good on bent grass. He's 13th over the past 100 rounds. So I would go Rahm first outside of DJ, but we should maybe just rank the top 5 quickly once you talk to me about Dustin Johnson. Yeah,
so the reason I have DJ as my first pick and the reason that I am willing to go to him despite the fact I know he'll be super popular is that I just feel better about his approach play than Rahm's. I feel better about DJ's off the tee play than JT's. And I feel better about the putting for DJ than Rory. So he is the guy who comes closest to checking every box for me. And that's helped him rack up a ton of birdies recently. He leads the field in birdies or better gained the past 50 rounds. DJ's finished 6th or better in 5 straight events. The only time in that stretch where he didn't gain at least 3.5 on approach was at the Tour Championship, where he was kind of able to coast because he started off 10 under par. So I just feel best about DJ's overall profile. So I know you're angry about the win picks. Calm down. I would say DJ 1, Rory 2, JT 3, Xander 4, Rahm 5. Just totally disrespecting John Rahm by putting him 5th. What about you?
I'd go is it process based or like tournament based?
Tournament based. When you're factoring in projected popularity.
Rahm.
Okay.
JT, Xander, Rory, DJ.
So you're just going super underweight on DJ.
I mean, if I'm making a stand, I might as well make a stand, right?
Okay.
Because if one of those guys wins and you're overweight on them and DJ finishes like 10th,
yeah,
you're gonna need that.
Yeah.
If DJ wins, you obviously have to have him, but you're basically saying if he's on 50% of lineups, but he's got like a 8 to 9% chance to win, I'm gonna play the 90% chance that he doesn't win.
What are his win odds in your sims?
I have him at 7.8.
Okay.
Rahm's a little higher.
Okay, perfect. Who else do you like in this upper range then?
I struggled with this, but I'm at Daniel Berger, I guess. Just because I have to pick someone in this general range who's outside the top 5.
You could have picked the second stud. I wouldn't push back on you.
I mean, I think Daniel Berger's still a fine play if you want to go a little bit more balanced, but he's 10-4 on FanDuel. He's a better Bermuda putter, but he's 3rd in birdie or better rate gained. He's 7th tee to green over the past 50 rounds. He's not long off the tee, which I am factoring in, but he's very accurate. He's 18th in this field in fairways gained, and you do have to hit fairways here in certain spots. You have to kind of play the right tee shot. So he's got a balanced profile. Good driver of the golf ball, good irons, good putter. So over 4 rounds, if I had to pick one golfer in the 10K range, it might be Berger first.
Okay. I like Berger. I think that he does make sense if I decide to get there. And honestly, I will say you can get Berger in a lineup with 2 of the top 5. So don't exclude him. I want to talk about Colin Morikawa, though, because Morikawa is coming off back-to-back missed cuts. So I'm expecting him to be completely overlooked here, but he's still a world-class golfer. The missed cut last week for Morikawa was 100% fueled by putting. He actually gained 3.5 tee to green, but lost 3.3 putting to miss that cut. The approach play was there too. It helps him sit 3rd in the field and approach the past 50 rounds. He is 14th off the tee. He is a middling putter, but with everything else being so good, he's 11th in birdies or better gained the past 50 rounds. So I think because the top tier is going to get all the attention and because Morikawa has 2 missed cuts, I actually am pretty intrigued by jumping down to him when I decide not to get 2 of the top 5. So I actually like Morikawa as a tournament-focused pivot for this week. Does he do enough for you to get there? Or if you're getting in this range, you're just going to guys like Wolfe or Hatton or anyone else?
He does enough, obviously. I mean, we know how good he can be. It's just a matter of, I think if you're playing Morikawa at that point, I would probably, and this could be a little bit dumb, but I would probably just build a lineup based on the fact that one of the top 5 doesn't win. Try to get Morikawa, Berger, like Victor Hovland, as many of the non-top 5 guys as you can to try to maximize the win probability. Again, because you'd have to assume that one of the top 5 doesn't win. So he doesn't really fit my priority process, but sure. I think if you're building lineups with the assumption that one of the top 5 does not win, Morikawa is probably one of the first places to look.
Alrighty. You mentioned Victor Hovland as being a guy you might target in that build. He is your first mid-range pick. What puts you on Hovland, besides the fact that he's good?
Well, he's good. He's 10,100, which is actually outside what we typically do for mid-price, but yeah. I hate the middle.
It's our podcast, our rules.
Our podcast, our rules, and I hate the middle range. It's 11 golfers, I think, who even fit, and they all have issues. It's basically all the big names who don't have good form and Harris English. That's kind of what the range is. But Hovland's 9th in the field in strokes gained tee to green. by way of being 15th off the tee and 5th in approach. He's pretty long off the tee, all things considered, 33rd. He's pretty accurate as well. He's one of the golfers I kind of go to whenever you need distance and accuracy, so I never hate Hovland for that. And he has just one positive putting surface in his career. It's a 45-round sample, but he is positive on bent grass and rates out fairly well relative to this field.
And he's been doing that for a long time. Like, it's not fueled by one event. Like, Hovland has consistently been someone who's graded out well on bent grass, so I think it's kind of legit. It's still a small sample, obviously, but like 45 rounds is not nothing. Yeah. So I think Hovland's really good. I also like Scottie Sheffler at 9.8, just beneath Hovland. Scheffler is another guy like Morikawa who missed the cut last week, but the larger body of work is so impressive here. He's actually lost an approach in 2 straight, but in the 6 events before that stretch, he gained an average of 3.3 on approach per event. And the off-the-tee play has always been rock solid. He's gained there in every event since January. So this helps Scheffler rank 5th in birdies or better gain the past 20 rounds. I kind of think we're going to have to go low this weekend to get a good finish. Scheffler can do that. He's $9,800, and I think the tier drops off a lot right after him. So I think my goal is to, at minimum, get to Scheffler. If I can find a way to get to Hovland, I prefer Hovland, who is $300 more. I also don't mind Sungjae at 9.9. I don't mind Fitzpatrick at 10,000. I'd probably rank Fitzpatrick lowest of those 4. But I think that Hovland 1, Scheffler 2, Sungjae 3, Fitzpatrick 4, all guys I like and would like to get back up to for my third golfer.
Yeah, I mean, that range right around 10,000 is interesting, which is basically as balanced as you can get. I would include Harris English, who I'll talk about in a second, but like Scheffler, Hovland, I've kind of turned around on Fleetwood. I'm not really ever into Fleetwood anymore, but like I think that lineup is probably the easiest way to build a completely different lineup this week.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. And I'm like, if you're multi-entering, vary your roster construction. Like, don't always go to the top 5. And I think that's one route you could go there. You mentioned Harris English. What puts you on him?
He's been good. He's not long off the tee, which is a little concerning. But in this range, there just aren't a whole lot of golfers who are long and like putt well and kind of do everything. So it's an either or situation. And I've really come around on putting. He's second in bent grass in the field over a 100 round sample. He's still 16th tee to green over the past 50 rounds. So in this range where nobody particularly stands out, I do like Scheffler, but all things considered, English is my favorite play in this range. So I'm going to have a lot of Harris English this week.
Would you rank him above Sungjae and Hovland? I know it's kind of stretching the quote-unquote range, but
for the salary, I think kind of by default I will, because it will be hard to play Hovland and M. But I like those guys. So
okay, perfect. Another guy who is in this range who, like, if I'm there, I could consider it, is Abraham Answer. I know it's the most ringing endorsement anyone's ever heard. If I'm there, I'll consider it. But Answer finished 4th last week. That was entirely due to putting, so do not factor that into your process of this week. I'm just telling you, don't do it. But honestly, the approach play hasn't been that good for 2 or 3 months now, which is concerning. But we know that Answer has those spike weeks in him. That's more than I can say about most of the golfers in this tier. The off-the-tee play should be good, too. He has gained off the tee in 9 of his past 11 events, including gaining 2.4 there last week. He's about neutral as a bent grass putter. Again, I'd rather avoid this tier if possible. I probably would go Paul Casey over Answer as well. But if I do wind up here, Answer is okay. Any thoughts on Abraham Answer than my, again, ringing endorsement?
Well, last week I recommended him just out of like obligation for the long-term form. Like I kind of didn't really have anywhere else to go. I think that's basically the case for him again this week. In this range, he's got good long-term form relative to everybody else, but from an actual process standpoint, it's not quite there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And if I can just dip down and avoid it, I'd rather do that. And I think I'd rank Paul Casey ahead of him too. So let's move down to the value range. I think the value range is a lot better than the 9,000 range. So talk to me about your favorite guy here. Is it Neiman or Kim?
It's going to be Siwoo Kim, but I'll talk Neiman first. I usually just sort these by salary. I know you said these are your two favorite guys down here, but nobody else stood out, so I wanted to get to the sheet first. Neiman's 8,800 has moved from 65 to 1 to 50 to 1, so he might be a popular value pick this week. But we know the ball striking is generally there. He's 19th in stroking it off the tee, 15th in approach. He's also long off the tee for being small. One of his New Year's resolutions was to get stronger abs, so maybe that has something to do with it.
Was that why he's eating the avocados?
Well, I think
does he just like avocados?
Well, I think his 3 resolutions were to eat more avocados, get stronger abs, and to get a house.
Okay.
So I don't know if he's done all 3, but maybe,
Has he consulted Bryson on the abs thing or no?
I'm sure Bryson has given him advice unsolicited on how to get abs.
I'm sure he has. Yes, exactly.
Which is somebody who's going for power. Bryson's obsession with visible abs is always confusing to me, but it's just not really.
He should wear the Batman suit that for some reason has abs in the armor. I don't know why. If Bryson wears the Batman suit while golfing, I think that's slightly more egregious than Tyrol Hatton wearing a hoodie. Maybe that could generate some buzz. I don't know.
I mean, anything Bryson
would not be the weirdest thing that Bryson has done this year, though.
Yeah, anything that Bryson does generates.
Yelling at the ants might grade out as being weirder than wearing a Batman suit.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. How did we
get here, by the way?
I don't know. I got to finish talking about Joaquin Niemann. When Niemann's on bent grass, you can play him. He's 26 over the past 100 rounds on bent grass. We know the ball striking's there. Can't really, formulate a better value pick than Niemann.
I agree. I think Niemann I actually prefer Niemann over Kim by a tiny bit, but I think both are really, really good plays. My number one pick down here, again, I prefer Niemann and Kim, but after those two, I don't mind Billy Horschel. The only big hole in Horschel's game is inconsistent irons. They're not bad irons, they're just inconsistent, but he can have spike weeks there, so I like him from an upside perspective. Horschel is 58th in approach the past 50 rounds, which is hashtag not great, but he still had big weeks. In his past 9 events, he has gained at least 2.5 on approach 4 separate times, 29th off the tee, 10th in bent grass putting. So it shouldn't be surprising that Horschel has put together some good finishes. I, again, prefer Niemann over Horschel. I prefer Kim too, but I am willing to go here. Brandon, is the inconsistency with the irons what pushes you away from Horschel?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I usually prefer him on Bermuda to bent grass, but he's actually pretty good on both, so I should probably lose that bias there. But I think for me, it's just more searching for birdies, and he makes birdies, so it's I don't know. It just doesn't feel like he should make a lot of birdies, but he's 17th in the field in birdie or better rate gained.
He's
46 in opportunity.
Better than Niemann there.
Yeah, probably because Niemann doesn't putt as well. I wonder what that is on just bent grass, but either way, and we know.
Actually, you can find out on Fantasy National.
Yes. Horschel, though, I don't hate him, but
I'm glad you don't hate him.
No, he actually liked one of my tweets before when I was defending him for wearing a hat backwards. So,
okay.
We have a back and forth.
Yeah. Is it the same text thread as DJ or no?
No, I got them all. Because we all have our takes. So
joshing around. Yeah.
But I don't know who else you really put on the radar down here. I don't hate Jason Kokrak, which is, I think I've said that before. I don't hate, whoever we've talked about, I guess, Answer, but nobody else particularly stands out. So I'd be okay.
Pull up the birdie numbers on Bentgrass. My computer is being aggressively slow. So
well,
I'll continue looking for that. You talking about Siwoo Kim.
Yeah. I think Kim's the best value play over Niemann just for the 500 in salary. That does go quite a long way. Talked about him in current form already, but he's just barely negative on bent grass in his career, which I can kind of deal with. But over the past 100 rounds, he's 19th on bent grass. So the putting's been getting better. All those top 8, top 20 finishes, and he's 19th in the field in strokes gained tee to green over the past 50. That does it for me. Process wise, I should prefer Niemann, but I think that 500 in salary is pretty substantial down here. So I would go with Kim over Niemann by a hair.
So Joaquin Niemann is actually 8th in birdies or better gained on Bentgrass over the past 50 rounds. So I changed the sample bit there. Billy Horschel is scrolling. Oh my gosh, where is Horschel? Oh my gosh, how far? Oh, I missed him. Okay, cool.
Why don't you just search for him?
No, I didn't miss him. He's 53rd. Okay. So there we go.
It's a little bit problematic because a lot goes into making birdies outside of just the putting surface, but there is some, there's something to it.
I don't mind it because Horschel actually is above average on Bentgrass, so I guess it's not going to scare me. But hey, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the better value plays, probably.
Sure,
it's just not saying a whole lot.
He's no Joaquin Niemann. Did you talk about Kim? Because I was not listening.
I ran through a whole thing on Kim.
Okay, well, I'll talk about Kevin Kisner then. Again, it's Niemann, Kim, Horschel, and then Kisner for me. So he's 4th, but I'll probably still get there. He's a great Bentgrass putter who can have some good weeks elsewhere, and that works for me at 86. Kisner is 5th in the field in Bentgrass putting the past 100 rounds. In 12 events since the end of the COVID layoff, we've seen Kisner gain at least 3.5 on approach 4 times. He's gained 2.4 off the tee twice. And with 4 rounds to play with, I can get behind that. It's led to some good finishes. Kisner has 3 top 5s and 7 top 25s in this time. So he's 4th for me in this range, but I'm willing to go there. Brandon, will you have any Kevin Kisner or no?
Probably not. I don't play Kisner much. He lost 3.8 strokes around the green at the U.S. Open, 3 strokes at the Tour Championship. It's hard to lose that many strokes around the green, but he lost 3 at the PGA, 4 at the Arnold Palmer.
Still finishing well.
Yeah, so I mean,
finishes, Brandon. You love finishes.
Yeah, finishes tell you everything. I mean,
very descriptive.
He's we know he's usually fueled by the putter. It's just a matter of, is he going to gain strokes from approach in this field? He gained at the PGA, but I would bet that he is neutral at best with the irons this week.
Do you want to make a bet about over under 0.0?
Yes.
We have no bets yet this week.
That's true.
I'll take more than 0.0 strokes gained on approach for Kevin Kisner this week.
Okay. So then I get 0 in case he's completely average. I get that as the tie break.
Yes, I will give you that. Yes.
Okay.
If he's 0.0, you win.
Yes.
And you could use the win, honestly, because you're getting dusted in the win picks and in the head-to-head bets. So,
Nope, that's not true.
Are you winning the bets?
Yes.
Well, you've also already clinched the bobble hat, which runs through the Masters.
And by dusted in the win picks, I want to clarify.
Dusted by Dustin. No. Again, if you'd won the freaking bobble hat the week before, you could have had Dustin Johnson. I'm sorry, you're not better.
I want to go back through.
Be better.
If I had more time, I would go through and see how many win picks you lopped off by saying that you can't pick someone. We couldn't pick Bryson when he was a huge favorite, and so none of us had a shot to win.
Oh well. I'm not lopping anyone off this week. Let's do our win picks.
All I'm saying is, if I made the rules, I would have trouble sleeping at night sitting on this 2-1 lead.
I don't have any trouble sleeping at all. It's great. I have a 2-1 lead. Why would I have trouble sleeping? It's great. If you win, you don't need to care about your morals. That's the rule. Be American. Gosh. Who are you picking to win? You have honor because, at least in this, because you won the bobble hat this past week. We're going anyone you want, and then 50-1 or longer. 50-1. I said it. I can't take it back.
Who's 50 then? Is it
no one? No one.
Is it Niemann?
No, Niemann's not 50-1.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. He's 49.
I'm
going to bribe John Sheeran, the guy who sets the odds for FanDuel Sportsbook, to put into 49 before you make your pick.
All right, so then if it is 50, I have to go Niemann?
No, you don't.
So I will go with Niemann.
You don't have to go with anyone.
I'll go Niemann.
All right, then I'll take DJ. I know you have Rom higher in your win sims, but I just prefer DJ. So I'll go DJ.
Feels like DJ's going to win anyway.
Yeah, he's going to win. Give me a 3-1 lead that you just can't overcome. So I have DJ and man, Paul Casey.
Saw that coming.
So I have DJ and Paul Casey. You have Neiman and Rahm, I assume?
Yeah, I think I have to go with Rahm, although I should probably stop picking based on my sims and picking more picking because my win picks for this never match up with who I actually bet because I don't bet guys who are 10-1. So
but we're not betting. We're just making win
I
picks.
know, but I'll hit on a win, and I'll win money, but I'll lose the bobble hat, which matters way more to me than winning money on an outright. But yeah, I'll go Rahm.
The win picks are worth $25 for an entire season. A Matthew Wolfe outright is worth
I'm trolling.
Okay,
I'll go Rahm because he's the best process pick for what we're doing.
So you have Rahm and Neiman. I have Rahm and Neiman. I have DJ and Paul Casey. This feels like vintage Jim picking DJ and Paul Casey. It's been feels like a Masters field. Because I feel like I've definitely made that combination pick in a Masters before. Regardless, that is all the time that we have for today. Brandon, any final thoughts for you on the CJ Cup before we close up for today?
I think outside the bottom, golfers and salary, a lot of golfers are in play. I know we're not super enthused by the 9,000 range, but it's not like Ricky Fowler's unplayable. So I would say figure out who you want to be highest on in your tournaments. If you're playing just one lineup, just play Dustin Johnson though.
I agree. And I think the default should be 2 of the top 5, but be willing to deviate roster construction if you're multi-entry, because that's an easy way to be different from the field without getting too stupid. That is all the time that we have for today. We are back here once again on Thursday to preview week number 6, not 4, of the NFL. That'll be on YouTube at 10 a.m. Eastern, recording live there, and also on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed immediately after. So make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Gdula13, GDULA13.
And I am at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck with your lineups for the CJ Cup at Shadow Creek. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire.